And we are back. It's Monday night, the 11th of October, ending the fifth week of the NFL season already. Thank God, but we have the extra weeks because we got 17 games this year. And another, well, I don't want to, it was a very different weekend for the NFL. A lot of surprises, a lot of injuries that are going to be able to talk about, and some teams that we thought were going to have some pretty big years right now are on the precipice of being in trouble. Starting with, we'll start with last night's game. Buffalo took care of business against Kansas City. Chiefs lose 3 already, and earlier in the day, the Chargers won their fourth. So, and the Chargers didn't win against a bad team; they won against the Browns. And the other thing, just we'll start with last night's game, then we'll go to the Chargers and the Browns. But last night, I mean, this Buffalo team, after one hiccup the first week, just seems to be getting better and better.
They look solid, and the biggest issue so far this season with the Chiefs has been their defense. Mm-hmm. And I saw some of that last night. Their defense was unable to stop Josh Allen. I mean, they couldn't stop him when he wanted to throw it. They certainly couldn't stop him when he wanted to run it. And their defense just has a hard time getting off the field on third down. The pass rush is not what it used to be. And a big problem with the Chiefs defense right now is not having their best player. And that's my opinion, but a lot of people I think would share that in Jones, the defensive lineman. He's their best player. And when he's gone and not playing, it's very evident. But they had no pass rush last night. Frank Clark, I know, was playing, but he's been injured for most of the season, and he looked like he was injured last night. And they had no real, there was not really anybody in the backfield all night long for the Chiefs against the Bills. And the Bills used the formula that's been working. They took away Travis Kelce for the most part. This is what we talked about last week.
Yeah,
somebody hit Kelce on every play. Okay. Right. So, he still had a couple catches, but he got banged up. And when he caught it, they knocked the crap out of him. And when he didn't catch it, they knocked the crap out of him. And then they had a guy covering Tyreek Hill man-to-man, and they had a safety over top. So, they basically took away the deep threat, which is what causes people so many problems. And it looked to me like, Mahomes was just kind of having problems with being patient. And he wanted to hit the home run play, and it wasn't there. And that caused a lot of issues for their offense. And kudos to the Bills. They played a great game offensively and defensively. And I think McDermott deserves a lot of credit for the game plan. And you know what? They went into Kansas City and took out the Chiefs in Arrowhead. And not many people have done that the last few years.
I like McDermott, and I'll tell you what, he's one of those guys that, for me as a Giant fan, I hope they take a page out of the Buffalo and just give Joe Judge time to build a team for him. Because you can see, if you have a quality coach and you think he's the right guy and you give him the patience and don't say after 2 years goodbye and jettison him, you can make things happen. The one thing I worry about last night, if you look at it, more on the Buffalo side than the Chiefs side, because you identified it in the previews, Josh Allen again being their leading rusher. They got to get some kind of a running game that he can depend on. It's great that you have that weaponry. But as we saw in the Giant game earlier in the afternoon, all that takes is one freak play, and now you don't have Josh Allen. So not that you don't want to use him, but you want to be judicious about it. 11 carries, 59 yards, nice stats, and he always puts up nice stats. But even Mahomes ran it 8 times for 60 yards last night. Both quarterbacks led their teams in rushing. So I'm more worried about Buffalo right now. Not that I don't worry about Mahomes. I think that was more out of desperation for Mahomes. But Buffalo does not have a plan for a running game.
No, and I talked about this, if you remember, in the draft and after last season, that I know they drafted Zach Moss and they drafted Singletary a couple years ago, and I don't have a problem with either one of those guys, but I'm not giving either one of those dudes the rock 20 times in a game.
No, they're not somebody you can put the saddle on when you
No.
get that 15-point lead and say, okay, we're just going to run clock now.
Right. And last night, in case you didn't notice, when they needed, it was 3rd and 7 and they're trying to run the clock down, Josh Allen was doing it himself. Yeah. And he would take off and be in the shotgun and just run forward and get the 7 yards on his own. But I am with you. I just, this is a guy that can set your franchise up for 10, 15 years, and running him 12 to 15 times a game, I just don't think is a great idea.
No, and not to compare him to Jackson, but Jackson has that ability to avoid hits. He doesn't have that. He'll slide, he'll do the right things, but I mean, he doesn't have the way of giving that shoulder shake and getting away from it. So, that was again great early season matchup. It lived up to expectations for the most part. Kansas City now is facing for the first time in 3 years a little bit of doubt, a little bit of self-doubt, because that division is very, very tough.
Well, and the Chargers and the Ravens both kind of gave the blueprint on how to beat them. So the Bills took a page out of the Chargers and the Ravens playbook and basically did what those two teams did, and also came out with the victory. So, now they're 2-3. And, I just don't know anyone who picked the Kansas City Chiefs after week 5 to be 2-3. And now they've got to go to Washington and then to Tennessee. So 2 games on the road, and that defense is not doing well. I mean, I expect, I expect the Washington football team to rack up some yards on that defense, and I expect Derrick Henry to run their asses over. So, I think that there's cause for concern in Kansas City.
I totally agree with you. And then the team you're talking about, the team that right now is riding high and out there on the West Coast, big win over Cleveland, 47-42. I feel sorry for Baker Mayfield, because the first thing when I looked at the stats for that game, and I said it is so reminiscent of every bowl game he was in. He played well, but the Sooners had no defense, and it turned into a shootout, and they'd lose, like the Georgia Rose Bowl.
Yep.
It's like, he passed for 302 yards, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns, solid game. They got 100 and something yards from Chubb. So you're thinking, with their defense, they should win. But Herbert is really, really good. But still, the Cleveland defense is supposed to be a little bit better than they're shown right now.
Yeah, I mean, they did not play up to par yesterday. They were missing, I believe. And I know Myles Garrett played, but he was not 100%. He still had a sack and a tackle for loss and 3 QB hits, but he wasn't as dominant as he usually is. Their defense just did not play as well as they should be playing, with the amount of talent and the amount of stars that they have on that defense. And Nick Chubb, what a game! 21 carries, 161 yards. Averaged almost 8 yards a carry. That guy's unbelievable. And Baker had a good game too. I mean, 305 yards, 23 of 32, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That should be good enough to win, but you're not going to win any games if you can't stop the other team. And, there was just too many times where guys were wide open, running down the middle of the field for the Chargers. And I love Herbert, as you know.
Yeah.
Everyone who watches and listens to this show knows I thought he was the best quarterback in the draft 2 years ago, and I think he's proven that he is.
Yeah, there's no mistaking him. He was, he has proven he's passing every test, and the team, they're developing around him. The young coach they got out there, he was a nobody, but we may have to start paying attention to him too.
The coach for the Chargers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we do need to, I just didn't know much about him. I knew that he had been, that he was a young guy. I knew he worked for the Rams and was under McVay, but, I just kind of was like, where are they getting this to put this guy in as their head coach? I just was, a little bit with all the coaching candidates that they were looking at. That was the one guy that I was kind of like, I'm not sure about him. But wow, what a difference he has made. I mean, they played in all those, 7 or 8 games that were within, one score last year. They lost them all, and this year they're winning them all. And that a lot of that credit needs to go to the coach. A lot of it also needs to go to quarterback being in his second season.
Yeah, and you do love the fact that it's young coached. I mean, I don't know if you remember it, but for a long time they would retread old coaches. Well, we saw it with Wade Phillips would come back every 3 years. Somebody like that they'd bring back. It's good to see these young coaches getting a chance and bringing new life and a new view to the football. And I think a lot of it is that's why we're seeing better defenses. We're seeing better offenses. We're seeing more use of it. It's not just, cookie cutter, whatever. They're being inventive, and I think they're bringing a new way of doing things to the game, which is great. One game, or the next game I wanted to look at is, New England, 25-22. They win against the Texans. Kind of worrisome, do you think, though, 25-22?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. I watched this game, and they were very, very lucky to win this game. The Texans were in control almost the entire game, and I gave Davis Mills a hard time after last week. I mean, he did throw 4 interceptions and looked terrible, but I kind of thought that he was never going to be an NFL quarterback of any caliber. And boy, did he come out and prove me wrong. I mean, he had a tremendous game, and I couldn't believe it. He was phenomenal. And a lot of the guys he was throwing to I'd never heard of. I'm not sure who Chris Moore is, but he had over 100 yards and a touchdown for the Houston Texans. So you know what? I think we need to give the coach in Houston a lot of credit. I know they're 1-4. But they've been putting up a tough fight, and they gave the Patriots everything they wanted and more yesterday, and had a very good chance to win that game.
Yeah, I think the defense of the Patriots is a little bit their Achilles heel. Their offense, Mac Jones didn't play bad. He had an interception and a touchdown, 200-something yards passing. They still were supposed to be better running the ball this year. They haven't established anybody as their number one back. I know White's down right now, but I never thought of White as a full-time running back. I think of him more of a third down specialist kind of guy.
Yeah, so, he is. They let Sony Michel walk and put all their eggs in the Damian Harris basket, and he had 14 carries for 58 yards. That's 4 yards a carry. That's not bad, but he also had a costly fumble, and after he went. After he fumbled the ball, they started kind of giving the ball more to Ramondre Stevenson, the kid out of Oklahoma. But he wasn't as effective running the ball at only 2 yards a clip. So I think it's more so to do with the offensive line than it is these running backs. I still think they have a lot of talent in their backfield with Harris, with Stevenson, with Brandon Bolden, even J.J. Taylor. Is a guy that they really like up there, but he had some fumbles too in the weeks previous, and we haven't seen a whole lot of him. I don't know if he's banged up or just fallen out of favor, but you're right. This running game is not doing what was expected of them, and I think a lot of it has to do with their offensive line underperforming.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about it. It's 2 years removed from him, but Dante Scarnecchia or whatever, their old offensive line coach. I mean, he knew how to take a bunch of guys and get them to work together, and that was something Belichick never had to worry about when Tom Brady was there, and or Brady didn't have to worry about it when he was there. Since Dante's gone, this offensive line's been a question mark for New England, and we'll see what they can do. New Orleans, Washington. Washington hung around, but it's becoming a theme now for Washington this year, playing it close and then losing it in the end. Jameis he didn't make any big errors, and he threw for 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah, he threw for 4 touchdowns, 280 yards, and 4 more touchdowns, big guy.
But for a while, without seeing the game, I was looking at some of the stats when it was going on. And for a while, it seemed like he was having trouble connecting with his wide receivers. I don't know if it was drops or what, but it seemed like they got it together and were able to pull it out. But, I mean, still, going into the fourth quarter, 22-20, Washington was right on pace with them. And then they did what they had to do in the fourth quarter, and they took over the game, and they won, and they got back on the winning track. And a big win for the Saints.
Yeah, it was big, and Jameis played really, really well in the fourth quarter. You were right. At times, he did have some trouble, completing passes, and he
But he
was
didn't make the mistake.
right.
That was
He
the
was
biggest
around
thing.
50% throughout the day, but he didn't throw any interceptions. He threw one, but he didn't have that play that cost him, and he was very effective in the fourth quarter and actually threw a couple of touchdowns in the fourth. And the kid from Tennessee, Marquez Callaway, wow, this is a dude that a lot of people didn't know about him just because the quarterback play at Tennessee was so horrible that you didn't get to see a lot of him. I mean, Jarrett Garantano, let's be honest, no offense to the Jersey boy, but he was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And Juwan Jennings and Marquez Callaway, their careers and their numbers really suffered because of that. But you've seen Juwan Jennings already scored a couple touchdowns for the 49ers, and Marquez Callaway's wide receiver number 1 in New Orleans, and he's just getting better every week. And if him and Jameis can get on a consistent streak where they're really in tune, look out, this team could really take off.
I don't disagree. Weirdest game of the day, Green Bay, Cincinnati. I was watching that game. How does two kickers miss 5 consecutive field goals? I mean, it was one of the worst things in the world. I mean, you had to feel sorry for these guys because it was like the yips. And the worst thing is Cincinnati thought they had won it in overtime, but the ball went over the post or off just outside the post.
Hit the flag. Hit the flag, and the
Yeah.
guy thought that it went through, but it actually hit the flag right next to the pole, and he couldn't believe it. And the flag was kind of flying, with the wind, and so it kind of looked like it went in, but it hit the flag and just went out. And he was celebrating, and a lot of the team was too because he thought he had made it. And it wasn't just that game. I mean, the entire NFL struggled all day long kicking the football. I think they tied the record for the most missed extra points in the history of the NFL. So wow, I think there was 11 or 12 missed extra points in one weekend. That's pretty crazy. And the weather wasn't really that bad.
No,
there was no snowstorms, there was no hurricanes, there was no twisters. So I don't really know how to explain what happened, but the good news is that after everything that occurred, Green Bay still had a lot of faith in their kicker, and they put him back out there. At that point, I was like, man, just go for the touchdown. But LaFleur and Rodgers looked at him at Crosby and said, can you make it? He's like, I got you, boys. And they sent him back out there. And you know what? At that point, I give him credit because I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, but it's so hard because Mason Crosby's been so good for so long.
I know he's a great kicker, but he missed 3 in a row.
Well, I agree with you. We've seen it before with New England. When you lose faith in the kicker, you got to get rid of him.
Yeah,
because he loses faith in himself, and it was. I think with Mason Crosby, you got to sit there and give him this is your one bad day. But if it starts becoming an issue, we might see the end of Mason Crosby up there because they're going to need field goal kickers, or because they're going to be in a lot of close games and a lot of big games. So they're going to need somebody to depend on. The one thing watching that game, I'll tell you, they've got to shore up that offensive line in front of Burrow. He takes some shots. And he ran one time, and I guess he got a throat contusion, which I've never heard of.
He went to the hospital after the game. He was taken to the hospital in an ambulance because he couldn't speak. And apparently he took a shot to the throat area and had a contusion. So basically, what a contusion is, it's a deep,
bruise,
cartilage or bone bruise on his throat. And apparently he's all right, but he couldn't speak after the game, and they were really concerned that something serious was wrong. So I hope I always like Joe Burrow. He's a class act.
Yeah.
I hope he's okay. But their offensive line, is not great.
No, and he takes too many shots. It was a couple of times in the game. He's a gutsy boy, and you love him for that. But first of all, Joe Mixon. We'll talk about Barkley in a little while when we talk about the Giants. But Joe Mixon and Barkley have a little bit of the same thing. I mean, what's the old saying? The best ability to have is availability.
Yeah.
And as much as talented as he is, they need him out there. They need him out there to be that running back that can take some of the pressure off Burrow. Because like Josh Allen we talked about, you don't want these guys dropping back and taking all these poundings.
Well, yeah, and this is why, I was so confused as to why the Bengals let Giovanni Bernard walk. This is a guy who'd been on their roster for like 10 years and had done nothing but have successful career and be a tremendous third down back. And then, he'd step in and play every time Mixon went down, which was often. And now, that it's Samaje Perine and Mixon and nobody else really. So I'm not really sure what they're doing there. I think, obviously it's still a work in progress with the Bengals. They need help defensively, offensively, and also at running back, in my opinion. But, what the hell are they doing? I don't know if you saw the post-game press conference, but it looked like their coach was in a trailer in some mobile home park. And it's like, you don't have a practice facility for these guys. You don't have a nice place where they can do a press conference. It's the joke of the NFL. You make $1 billion a year just off the goddamn TV revenue, and you treat your players and your coaches, like they're a high school team. And that's why a lot of people don't want to go to Cincinnati, and I don't really blame them.
Well, it's, this is where, Goodell, I know he works for the owners, but this is where Goodell has to get together and say to Cincinnati, you're really looking at us, making us look bad. You got to, there has to be a certain level of excellence we'd want from all our teams. As far as, I'm not going to tell you what to spend on your players, but they got to have facilities. We're going to top line the facilities. We want people to come to our games and be impressed by when they're walking in there.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a stadium. Got it. I'm there.
I mean, they have a nice, the stadium's nice. I like it, but it's just the the little things that Mike Brown could spend a little bit more money. And really, they always want to say they're the small market team. Well, you're an NFL franchise and you're still making buku bucks. So spend a little. You got to spend money to make money, buddy. And he needs to step it up a little bit, because it was a joke. I'm like, what? Where are we? We broadcasting live from the trailer park down the street in Kentucky, or what the hell's going on?
Well, I've been lucky enough to, in my writing career, to go to a couple of, I went to Boston College and I was in their facilities, Penn State, their football facilities. I mean, my God, the rec room they have for the players there is anything they wanted is in there. And their weight room you couldn't beat. Their inside facility, their outside facility, and that's Penn State. You're Cincinnati. You're supposed to have something equal to that or better for your players. Because, I even went to where the Knicks and Rangers practice around here. And you walk in there and you feel like you're in someplace special, even if you're supposed to be a jaded sports writer. You're like, wow, this is pretty cool. It's like you get impressed. So if you don't have someplace like that, you're like, wow, great. I'm on some, AA Texas market. Thank you.
Yeah, so. I mean, you look, a lot of these high school teams in Texas have better facilities than the Bengals do.
Yeah, for sure.
There's high school teams in Cincinnati that have better facilities than the Bengals do, and a few of them play some games in Paul Brown Stadium, and I'm like, man, I bet the Bengals wish they had the practice facilities that those teams do, because it's become kind of a joke in the league.
All right, now we'll look at Denver against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, a big win for them when you consider that Cincinnati lost, Cleveland lost. So it kind of gives them a chance to creep back in there a little bit. Roethlisberger played better, passed less, played better. Najee Harris had a good running game, 122 yards. That was the biggest thing, I think. Bridgewater played as good as he can play, but he's not getting a lot of help from his running game. So I think the narrative of this week's show is quarterbacks and their running games and who's getting help and who's not. That's the way it's looking right now.
Well, yeah, and obviously Najee Harris had a great game, 23 carries, 122 yards and a touchdown. But what really stood out to me was the offensive line of the Steelers. I'm not saying that all their problems are fixed and that they're on their way to the Super Bowl or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but they played better. He had more time to get the ball down the field. He wasn't taking the big shots like he's taken over the last few weeks, and there were holes to run through for Najee Harris. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come for the Steelers and that offensive line. But you got to remember they've replaced 4 starters off last year's team, 4 starters, and some of those guys were Hall of Famers and had been there for 10 plus years. So it's not just going to happen overnight, and I think it's taken some time, but I believe in Coach Tomlin, and I'm not ready to write off, the big London there, Big Ben, just yet. This guy knows what he's doing, and I think if he didn't think he could do it, he wouldn't have come back.
Well, we will see. I'm a big Tomlin believer. I do think that Ben's a little long in the tooth, but it's easy for me to say it. I mean, I just look at the fact that Rivers and Manning are both gone, and he came in the same time as them. And this is a team right now coming into this year. They were going to be in probably, in most people's estimation, the 3rd team in that division, behind Cleveland and the Ravens. And nothing against Ben, but I don't think they have a team that can make the Super Bowl. And in speaking as somebody who sat through this. When Eli hung around, and they couldn't really quite get a team around him and couldn't kickstart their rebuilding. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth the time for Ben to put in. The risk and the reward for the Steelers and Ben, I don't know if it's worth it, but we'll see. And
who else did they have? I mean, they didn't have another quarterback ready to go.
No, they don't. They don't.
That's the whole thing, is that they didn't really have a good draft position this season.
True.
They weren't going to be able to get one of these guys that's out there starting for another team right now. And then I've seen enough of Mason Rudolph to know that he's not that guy.
Nothing but Oklahoma State. No,
what's that?
So nothing but Oklahoma State to know he's not that guy.
Well, I'm just saying when he's out there, when he's started some games, and let's be honest, last year or the year before when Ben went down, Ducky Hodges came in and provided a spark.
Yeah, I mean, but there's no easy way to do this. There's
no, but they had no other option. I think that Ben was really their best option. Even though he's 49 years old and he's played in the league for 25 years, he's just gives them the best chance to win based on what they had available.
True, but the whole thing is, like I said, I've been to this picture show. I've seen the ending of it. It's usually not pretty, and I just think that maybe Pittsburgh would have been better suited to look at it really realistically and say, let's reset the clock right now. We'll take our chances. We'll see if we can catch some lightning in a bottle a little bit, but we're probably going to be 3rd or 4th and out of the playoffs this year. And let's get some help. Let's get some work in the right direction. But then again, it's easy for me to say. I'm not judged on wins and losses. I'm judged on how I perceive wins and losses.
Well, they won. They were 11-0 last season. Everyone seems to forget that, but they were 11-0 at one point, and they've got a very talented, skill position group. Najee Harris, Benny Snell, Callan Ballage, not that bad. And then, what a game by your Notre Dame boy, Chase Claypool yesterday. 5 catches, 130 yards, a touchdown, 59-yard catch mixed in there. This dude is a baller. I like Deontay Johnson. He may be the best receiver on that whole group. And then you've got, Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth, Ray McLeod. Those guys are all good. And unfortunately, they lost Juju yesterday. And he dislocated his shoulder, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So, even more of a reason to get that running game up and running.
And here's one you could not have. I know I give you a lot of credit for being right on the money with a lot of stuff, but Sam Darnold, 3 interceptions. Thank you. You called it. I think if we go to the tape, I think you called 3 interceptions.
I said I predicted that he would throw 3 picks in this game.
Yeah.
Against the Eagles. I said the Eagles defense has been real. I think my exact words were the Eagles defense has been reeling. What's the best way for them to get right? Well, play against Sam Darnold. I expect him to throw.
You said I expect to see the old Sam Darnold with 3 interceptions or something.
And he threw 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
Do you know what his numbers are in the season? He's
6
thrown
and
6 touchdowns and 6 picks. And you know what?
That's the proof.
And people are like, oh, well, he looked really good. He's had a great season. No, he looked pretty dang good in the first 3 games when they played against horrible teams. And they had Christian McCaffrey.
There you go. That's the whole thing.
And they had Joe Brady calling the plays. They played the Jets, who suck. They played the Saints when they had 12 starters not playing and no coaches. And then they played the Texans. And he looked pretty good in those 3 games. I could have looked pretty decent. But since then, the Cowboys and the Eagles, he's looked like Sam Darnold. In
the first game against the Jets, I watched the first part of that game. And, I go back and forth. But I remember distinctly the first time that the Carolina Panthers had the ball. In the first 11 plays, I think McCaffrey had the ball 10 times in his hands. Either on a swing pass, a run, a dump off. So, if you don't understand the benefit of Christian McCaffrey to this offense and what his value is, you'll never understand it. But I'll tell you, and now he's, the Darnold thing is over with. And, I'm sorry. We were over it a long time before everybody else. I never liked the guy. I don't say I liked the guy. I never liked the way he played quarterback. I thought he was overrated at USC. I thought he was an interception problem there, a turnover problem there. He turned into a turnover problem in New York City, and it was always, he doesn't have anything about him. I'm sorry. First of all, Todd Bowles was fired because they didn't do enough to help him win. It was all about developing Darnold. Then they bring in Gaze, and they never brought in anybody to help Darnold out, and Gaze was an idiot, and I'm sorry.
Well, they always say, like, he never had anyone to throw to when he was in New York. He had the same guy that he has now in Carolina and Robbie Anderson. That was it. He had over 1,000 yards receiving in New York.
Let me just say so. I love when these people pick on these things, but they don't know anything about NFL history. I can go back to Joe Montana, and his first wide receivers were Dwight Clark and Freddie Solomon. Okay. When Brady took over in New England, he had David Patton and what was the other kid?
Gibbons.
Yeah. And then you got Eli Manning, who at one time had Amani Toomer, who's a nice receiver, but he never had big time wide receivers. Quarterbacks, it's nice when they get the big weapon, but the fact of the matter is, their job is to make their talent better. Their job is to make the receivers they got better receivers. Yeah. And if you can't do that, you're not an NFL quarterback.
Right. And let's talk about just the game yesterday. He had a running back go for over 100. Chuba Hubbard, you say, well, McCaffrey didn't play. Well, it's not like they couldn't run the ball.
Right.
Chuba Hubbard ran the ball 24 times for over 100 yards. And they had a nice little running game going. It's just Darnold was unable to get it done, and he kept throwing it to the wrong team. He kept holding on to the ball too long. He was sacked 3 times. This is the same thing over and over and over again. And this is why in the offseason, when they traded for this guy and dumped Teddy Bridgewater, I thought that they should all have their damn heads examined because I couldn't understand it. And now what are they going to do? They're going to have just enough wins where they can't draft anybody, and they're going to be forced to either pick up some veteran who sucks just as bad as Darnold or pay Sam Darnold, which is just ridiculous in my opinion.
Totally outrageous, totally a dysfunctional. And we both like the coach.
Yeah, I did like Matt Rule. And I like his coaching ability. I think, I don't know him personally, so I don't know what he's like as a dude. But as a coach, I like how he gets his team ready and how he has everybody kind of focused on the goal at hand. I think the team is well coached. Joe Brady and Matt Rule are doing a phenomenal job, but they have a duck back there throwing the ball. And, you could tell yesterday Jalen Hurts was licking his lips because he knew he could lead this team back to victory in the second half, and he did. And this is a guy, didn't have his best day throwing the ball, but, was able to figure it out and get it done when he needed to, and ended up running in 2 touchdowns for the victory. You know me, I love Jalen Hurts.
Sometimes you have to get by on your B stuff, you know what I mean, and win. At the end of the day, it's the W that you're going to be judged on. No one's really going to look at your stats unless you got an L on your side of the ledger. So he won. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Chicago surprising the Raiders. I was a little shocked with that.
Yeah, I was too. And, I think, Raiders have been playing some good football. And then all of a sudden yesterday rolled around, and that was not their best game. And, I expected the Raiders to win this game. I mean, especially after last week, they looked really good, but the Bears defense came to play, and they had a stellar game plan. And Khalil Mack looked like his old self. He was running around. Roquan Smith was unbelievable. Alec Ogletree had a good day. Eddie Jackson looked like Eddie Jackson. Was pretty impressed with the defense of the Bears. And you know what? Justin Fields got him a victory. So I think the Andy Dalton experiment should be over.
Oh, yeah, it should. And I think probably I don't know Khalil Mack personally, but I'm sure he was a little inspired to play the Raiders.
Well, yeah, and you got to think, too, the Bears were missing Armstrong, who's been their best offensive player over the past 2 years. And, their running back, he was down and didn't play at all yesterday. And the fact they were still able to pull off a victory without their most consistent best player on offense, I think is very impressive and says a lot about the ability of Justin Fields to win football games. I've seen it firsthand. This guy is a winner.
Tennessee got healthy against Jacksonville. That was predictable. Right now, Urban Meyer is like besieged. You have the Sharks circling for him. If he wronged a sports writer or a media guy, they now are just circling to taking nips out of him, trying to take him down. I don't know if that's the big distraction. He's also saddled with a very young team, talented young quarterback, and Tennessee needed this victory, and they knew they needed this victory.
Well, yeah, they were coming off a horrible loss to the New York Jets. I think they were embarrassed, and I know their coach was embarrassed losing the week previous to the New York Jets. So I think it was all business for the Titans, and they have Derrick Henry. So, and let's be honest, it's not about Urban Meyer right now. It's about the Jaguars roster. That roster is garbage. It was garbage last year. They, before Urban Meyer ever stepped on the team's facilities property, they lost 15 games in a row. So it's not like they just started losing when he got there.
Right.
They lost 15 games before he arrived, and honestly, they played pretty good in the first half and had it somewhat close until the end of the second quarter. So, I don't know. I guess the people are jealous of him. I'm not really sure what it is about Urban that people don't like, but a lot of the sports writers and a lot of the publications that are out there just hate this guy, and they want him to fail, and they're calling for his job already. It's like, what did you expect the Jaguars to win the Super Bowl this year? I just don't understand it.
But that's the way of sports. We build them up, we tear them down, and then we hope they have a second act where we can build them back up again. It's become sport with those sports writers in the media. It's to be hypercritical of things that we couldn't do ourselves, I guess. So, it is what it is. And in the back,
I kept hearing these guys, talking about how, he never was a good coach anyway. He just always out recruited everybody. And I'm like, did you ever see his teams play when he was the coach of Bowling Green? He certainly didn't have more talent than everybody, but he won 9-10 games a year. And then he went to Utah and went 14-0. So don't give me that crap. That guy is an unbelievable, the second best college football coach in the modern era. And whether or not he's going to be good in the NFL, it remains to be seen. But he may not get the time. He may not get enough time to see whether or not he can be good, because he's going to need more than 1 year to turn this place around.
Well, Nick Saban didn't do well in the pros either, so I mean, it is what it is.
Well, but what are we going to do? Are you going to give him 6 games and fire him?
No.
That's why the Jaguars suck now, is because they fire their coach after, first off, their hiring choices have been terrible, but then they don't even give anybody any time to even have a chance to turn it around.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, we were talking earlier about how these coaches, I mean, we're about to get into talking about a guy who last year was riding high, and now after losing to Brady, there'll be more people out to get Brian Flores. Yeah. Even though, again, another guy, he's got Jacoby Brissett as his quarterback, and he hung in with the Super Bowl champs for 2.5 quarters. And then, in the end, he doesn't have the talent that Tampa Bay has. Yeah. I mean, Tampa Bay, how they did it, I don't know what they did, but they brought their entire Super Bowl winning team back. That is, in this era, the 2000 beyond, since the Dallas Cowboys, you don't get to do that kind of stuff. When Jimmy Johnson was there, where you can bring back your team in entirety. And, Tampa Bay, I heard that Brady got his thumb hurt or whatever. Maybe he sucked it too hard. But over a call. But anyways.
Yeah, an incompletion. He threw an incompletion and then sucked his thumb to the refs.
Doing the interference.
Infected the nail.
Well, apparently, it was a close game. I mean, it was 20.
Here's the deal. His wife will take him for a manicure. He'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be sleeping in his oxygen chamber tonight, resting comfortably. But it was 24-17 is what these Dolphins fans, aren't going to remember. In the third quarter, it was 24-17, and they were playing very well for having their backup quarterback in there. And
he got carted off. He got carted off, didn't miss a play. He came jogging back out. He got carted off. He had some kind of I think his knee got rolled up on or something, but I missed the play. I'd been jumping back and forth between that and Green Bay, so I missed exactly what happened, but I saw him jogging back out, and they were like, oh, God. The announcer said, well, by the looks of that, we thought he was gone because they brought the cart out to get him. And
yeah, and you know what people also forget is once you have a decent season in the NFL, your next year's schedule is based on how you played the previous year. So this is a team that won 10 games last year, and their schedule was set up as so. And that's why if you go back through this, they played New England week 1. They played the Bills week 2, the Raiders week 3, the Colts, who was a playoff team last year, week 4, and then the Super Bowl champs week 5. So it's not like the Dolphins have been playing crap teams. They've been banging it out with some pretty good squads.
And the other thing is newsflash to everybody, okay? Everybody wants to anoint the current big thing as the greatest team of all time, okay? We've seen it many times. Now, Kansas City. People are figuring out how to stop Kansas City. People are figuring out how to play with them. These are professional coaches who do this for a living. They spend, 52 weeks a year watching tape, formulating, game plans, looking at what works for other teams against these teams, and they replicate it, and they do it over and over and over again. I saw it with the 46 defense. I saw it when Aaron Rodgers came up, and everybody thought he reinvented the quarterback position until Patrick Mahomes came along. Yeah. We try and we sit there and we go, the new thing. Yeah, enjoy the new thing while it's here. But the fact of the matter is, in a year or two, these coaches are going to find a way to give that guy problems. And that guy's probably not going to be able to do what he's doing right now. And then you're going to sit there and go, well, what happened to him? Well, people figure it out. That's what they're paid to do.
Yeah, well, they had a good season last year, as I mentioned. They won 10 games, and now their schedule is playing against that. And they've been hit with the injury bug also.
Yeah.
I mean, Tua's hurt. He's on injury reserve. They had Will Fuller for one game. He was supposed to come in and fix some of their wide receiver problems, and he was suspended the first game. He came in, played one game, then he's got put on IR. Lynn Bowden Jr., he's been on IR. Alan Hearns has been on IR. I mean, they're missing a lot of guys on offense, and they weren't that talented on offense to begin with.
And everybody is now going, why didn't they draft Herbert? Well, I know you were on the Herbert bandwagon, but a lot of people weren't. It's like, when we'll be talking about when we get to the Giants. Now everybody's, Saquon Barkley. Yeah, but you know who the people around here wanted when they drafted Saquon Barkley? Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
How good would the Giants be with those two quarterbacks?
Well,
So, I mean, the draft is a crapshoot at best. And when you find a GM that can navigate it and do it properly, and usually it's what they get in the second, third, fourth, middle rounds, the guys that stick and make a real big performance. The first round, you're probably batting around 45% usually when you on each team, if you look over their first round draft choices for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I've seen a lot of progress out of Daniel Jones this year. I really have.
I love him now.
I like the way he's played. A lot of the issues that he was having the last 2 or 3 years, I haven't seen those problems. He's been getting rid of the ball faster. He's been making better decisions. I've been very impressed with him, and I hope he's okay, and I hope he gets to continue on to keep playing because I want to see more of him. I think he's looked good. I wanted Daniel Jones, and not because I saw a lot of him. I'm not going to tell you I'm a genius, but you and I have talked about this many times. I would rather have a quarterback from a lesser university than one of these guys that come out of the big-time universities because I just think it's more of a struggle for these guys that come out of the big programs because they are surrounded with talent. And as not to steal from Urban Meyer, they're going to play Alabama every week. So you got to know a guy that the only reason in college that team was any good was because of him. And they said, Gettleman said when he saw him play against Clemson, he got his ass beat, but kept coming back and kept them in the game for 3 quarters. He said, "There's my quarterback." Yeah. No, I you know what? It didn't look pretty at times, but he has taken to the coaching, and he has gotten better, and he's improved, and he's fixed some of his issues. And I thought he was playing a tremendous game yesterday before the injury, and especially with all the guys he was missing, I thought he really stepped up and was playing pretty phenomenal until he got hurt.
But now we have to look at Tony, the wide receiver. I mean, getting in a fight, getting kicked out of the game. I know the game's over with at that point, whatever. But you saw he's showing you what he can be, and it's
he actually it was his first game where he actually showed the reason they drafted him. He looked pretty good, and then you go out there and throw a punch.
Beckham. Are we going to have Beckham all over again? Are we going to have a guy that eventually is just too much of a problem to keep? I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the first thing that came to mind when Beckham got in a fight against the Panthers. It's like, what are you doing? Why do you? It's more important you're out there on the field.
Well, especially when you're already missing Slayton, you're already missing Galladay, you're already missing Sterling. What's his name? Sterling. Sterling Shepard.
Yeah.
You're already missing Sterling Shepard. You've got 3 guys that are your primary targets that are all hurt and not playing. So guess what, buddy? You need to be on the field, especially if Mike Glennon's back there.
You need a game breaker.
Yeah, he needs all the help he can get. And speaking from Mike Glennon's perspective, and punching some guy's face mask. That doesn't really help anyone.
I always remember John Madden. He goes, whenever you see a football fight, you see the veterans, the first thing they do is they put the helmet back on.
Yeah.
Because the rookies take them off.
Yeah. And you always see the veterans come like this and
Yeah.
do the undercut so they get a little chin action. The rookies are going like this and breaking their hand on the side of helmets.
That's what you
don't want to punch a helmet, man. That's a great way to bust a finger.
Well, exactly. A wide receiver, the most important parts of your body. Firstly, your knees, and secondly, your hands. So, I mean, neither of them you want to get injuries to. And I got up in the morning and watched the Jet game, and I will tell you one thing. I didn't know. I saw what he did at Florida, but man, Kyle Pitts is good. I don't. He might be the guy who out Gronkowski's Gronkowski. I mean, he's that kind of a. If I was an offensive coordinator, I'd go, how many different ways can I use this guy? I might even put him in the backfield and let him run from the tailback position, just to see what he could do.
Well, they already have that guy. I mean, Cordarrelle Patterson. What else could this guy do? He caught 7 passes for 60 yards. He ran the ball 14 times for 54 yards. He threw a pass. He was returning kicks. I mean, what the hell would they do this year without Cordarrelle Patterson? I mean, Kyle Pitts is good, and don't get me wrong, he's the future of this franchise, but Cordarrelle Patterson is keeping that offense going.
And Matt Ryan's playing very well too. Matt Ryan, I was one of the ones that said that they should move on from him. It made no sense. I guess now I'm going to take up the slack for him the way you took up the slack for Ben Roethlisberger. If not him, who? And he's the one who's keeping you in games. He's a big reason why they beat the Jets yesterday. The Jets, the Jets are the Jets. That's what you're going to see this year. They got maybe their one win already, just like the Giants. Giants and Jets might be the 2 worst teams in football. If Daniel Jones is beat up and can't play, especially, and Saquon Barkley, I feel so sorry for this kid. I mean, his rookie year, he showed you what he could be. And now every year it's an injury. I mean, his second year was an ankle injury that slowed him down. Last year the knee, and now he steps on a defensive back's foot. Yeah. And we've all rolled our ankles.
Yeah, that was a freak. That was a freak thing. And these people that are like, oh, he's very injury prone. I mean, that was a freak thing. That wasn't something that happened because he's injury prone. That was just something that could have happened to anybody. And I noticed when we talked about the Giants game, you didn't really talk about them boys a whole lot. But I've got to give
the who?
Them boys.
There was another team.
Yeah, the team the Giants played that might be one of the best teams in the NFL right now.
Right now, they're scary. They really are scary. You could see a rematch with Tampa Bay very easily coming up, and if they stay, they seem to have their defense now. Diggs looks great. They seem to have a defense. We know they have an offense, and I mean that quarterback.
We both talked. We thought that Dan Quinn would come in and improve this defense. We thought that they would be better. I never in my wildest imagination thought they would get this much better this quickly. Did you?
No. And I like to say when you see a really great team, especially a defensive team, it always feels like they have 12 players on the field at all times because they shrink the field. The other team's got nowhere to go with the ball. They got nowhere to run the ball. They shrink it. It's like in every sport, when you talk basketball, whether you talk hockey, and especially in football, it seems like they're playing with more players than you have because you can't get them all blocked somehow.
Well, Trayvon Diggs is one of the best corners in the NFL right now, and he may be. He's in the top 5 as far as any of the cornerbacks that I've seen all year long. Anthony Brown had a really good game. I think Jabril Cox is going to be a good player. Micah Parsons is unbelievable.
I know. I was about to say Parsons and Diggs. I mean, in one draft.
Yeah. that was pretty big. That was a pretty nice pickup. I think Diggs was actually the year before.
Oh, was he the year before? Okay.
Yeah, he was the year before. But Leighton Vander Esch, he had a decent game.
Yeah.
Keanu Neal played good. Some of these guys were on the roster last year. They just weren't put in the right position. And Dan Quinn it deserves a lot of the credit for what's going on the defensive side of the ball.
definitely give it to Dan Quinn, but you also got to, Dak's worth. I mean, you just see it. I mean, Dak is worth 20 points to that offense. And he sets it up. Zeke becomes more effective, and Pollard now is just as that change of pace back. And then you got all those wide receivers. What do you do with this team? What do you do? I mean, there's just not you can only do so many. If you don't have the whole thing right now, if I'm looking at Dallas right now, and I'm looking at it from a Giant perspective, the only way the Giants can get away to compete with Dallas over the next 3, 4, 5 years is they got to go out and find themselves some of the best defensive linemen they can find. Because you need linemen that can stop the run and get after the passer, because this team does both so well. And it's just, they need to go back. They need to get Strahan and Tuck and those guys back.
Yeah, Kiwanuka.
Yeah.
And Justin Tuck and
OC.
Yeah, OC Umanura. They used to have those guys, and they don't anymore. And just think about it. Michael Gallup, I don't think has even played all year. So Dallas has been doing this, and no one's even realized that one of their best wideouts hasn't even been out there. So CeeDee Lamb has really stepped up. I think he's gotten better in his second year. Dalton Schultz is one of the best tight ends in the league, in my opinion, by the way that he can block and catch. Guy had 6 catches for 80 yards and can, be a pretty decent, substantial inline blocker as well. So really, really impressed with the Cowboys right now. And the only thing is, can they keep it going? That's what they've had trouble doing. They've shown sparks in the past, but they just haven't been able to sustain it week in and week out.
And the one thing about, just not to pick on, but Joe Buck, please don't make reference to the number 88 Dallas jersey so much, please. I know it's a gimmicky thing to say, but I saw Drew Pearson when he played. I saw Michael Irvin when he played. It's not like they've been using the 1988 jersey or the 88 jersey for 100 years. Okay, 2 great players had it before this kid.
Yeah, I hate Joe Buck, so I turned the sound down so I don't even have to listen to his ass.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's just he thinks.
And as you know that we've talked many times, I rarely get the sound anyway. It's usually, the My Little Pony, or Dora the Explorer, or the Smurfs, or there's some sort of cartoon going on that's got the sound driving me nuts.
Hey, listen, you should be right now taking these moments as precious, because in about 10 years you're gonna have to worry about boyfriends. And then you'll be really PO'd. Buddy,
I'm taking
You'll be craving that Dora the Explorer broadcast.
I love every minute of it. That will you come watch TV with me, Daddy? I'm like, oh yeah, pause my game. Let's go watch some cartoons.
Thank God for new TVs, smart TVs, man. Otherwise fathers would be going crazy all over this country.
Oh man, I got the Fubo TV. I can record like 12 games at once. It's so money for college football Saturday. I can record every single game that's on, and then I can watch it whenever the hell I want. So I'm a happy camper right now.
Definitely. And then just one game we didn't touch on was the Vikings outlasted Detroit again. I mean, Zimmer's okay for another week, I guess. I don't know. I keep saying, man, Jared Goff deserves a lot of credit for it. I just love the fact that the kid is not whimpering or complaining or anything. There's never anything come out of the kid. And he went from the Rams, who are now 4-1 with Stafford, to Detroit.
Well, they had basically won this game. Again, this is the second game in 3 weeks that they were ahead with less than a minute to go, and then still somehow managed to lose it. And it's just, man, I feel so bad for Lions players, Lions fans, the ownership. It's just like they're destined to lose.
It's like being a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. It's like, every once in a while you maybe got a Megatron or you got a Barry Sanders, and you maybe got to the playoffs a couple of times, but you knew you're going to win anything. And then all of a sudden those players are few and far between, because it's been such a wretchedly run program and business up there that it's surprising that in football where we talk about parity and we talk about the fact you can go from last to first, with one good draft or two good drafts, you can go from last to first place. That
unless you're in Detroit,
right? That they've never had a chance. And this is a team that's been around since the 20s, 30s. I mean, this is one of the flagship teams. They started with the NFL, and to sit there and just pay no attention to that fan base and not do something for them is a crime.
It's ridiculous. And my cousin's always been a big Lions fan, and I watch him live and die every Sunday because he always thinks they're going to win, and I'm just like, why do you think that? I can assure you they're not going to.
Yeah.
Even if they're winning with 30 seconds left, they will somehow figure out a way to blow it.
Maybe someday they'll get somebody in there to fix it up. Well, we got the Ravens tonight. Ravens-Colts. Can the Colts come up with some way to pull an upset here?
I don't think so. You giving me Carson Wentz versus Lamar Jackson, and I'm going to take the LJ era all day long.
Well, I definitely think that the Ravens are the better team. They have the better quarterback. I don't want to. Yeah, I think they got to go with a better coach. Harbaugh's won the Super Bowl. Frank Reich never won a Super Bowl. I feel sorry for Frank Reich in a way. I mean, he kind of got dealt a bad hand. I mean, he definitely has coached the team better than they. I mean, he gets the most out of what he's got, but he just doesn't have enough.
Yeah, well, they're 1-3, and if they lose tonight, they'll be 1-4. And don't you think that Colts fans and media and front office, everyone's going to be wondering what the hell were we thinking when we traded for Carson Wentz?
Oh God, yes.
It's going to be a bad news if they start off 1-4.
Oh, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it's maybe a cautionary tale for the 49er fans not to pounce on Trey Lance again. But remember, Trey Lance comes from the same university, started at the same university, so maybe they'll have the same problems once you get rid of Jimmy G.
Well, I just don't understand how you could watch last year and want that guy as your franchise quarterback. I mean, it didn't go well. And we've sat here for an hour and haven't mentioned the damn Cardinals once. And This is a team that is undefeated and did not have their best day yesterday offensively, but they played tremendous on defense. And, everybody wanted Trey Lance to get out there. Well, he was out there and couldn't score more than 10 points. And then he's now hurt and apparently has a sprained MCL in his left knee. So who knows if he'll even be available to play. Everyone, they jump on Jimmy G's back because they say he's always hurt. And then this guy plays one game and he's on the shelf. So here you go.
Well, you and I have been saying it all year. Jimmy G, all he does is win.
Yep. I'll take him.
Yeah, exactly. All right, my friend, we're going to say goodnight now. We'll be back on Thursday. And we'll have a full night of talking football and getting ready for the weekend, getting ready for week 6. Who's on Thursday Night Football this week?
Thursday night is
Tampa Bay Eagles.
Buccaneers and Eagles.
That should be a really good game. So we'll have a lot to say about that on Thursday night. We know hopefully Tommy's manicure gets better.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll get a pedicure as well.
Hopefully Jalen Hurts runs all over their ass, but it's going to be tough with that defense. They're solid.
See, I have a tough time rooting for Philadelphia because I'm a Giant fan, and it's just
I don't like Philadelphia, but I like Jalen Hurts. So
yeah, I know. But
anyone who's playing Tommy.
Yeah, I know. Anybody but Tommy. Well, it's time to say goodnight. Cue up the band, people. We will be back on Thursday night, 7:00. Thanks for tuning in.